This is also where we really started having the discussion about
Turning the
how
movie off.
well that and y'all are freaks and we don't like you anymore and we're gonna lock you underground somehow. Um, my name is Dorcas Horror and I already messed up my introduction. Let's start that over because I don't start this usually. Great. Okay. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh yeah, I need to do this. Hi everybody, welcome back to the Final Bros podcast. Um I forgot what my intro was. Let me look it up. Okay, great.
Was that it? Was that your intro?
No. Okay. We're starting over again. Ready?
Yeah, go.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Final Bros podcast. I have no plans for this podcast, but I do have concepts. I'm Dorcas Horror.
And I'm not the watcher. You're the watcher. Doll thighs.
Great. And on this episode, we're talking about The Watchers. Ooh, look at the movie poster.
Ooh,
Ooh.
spooky.
It wasn't.
Well, you know.
This is the newest directorial debut by Ishana Night Shyamalan, which is
Yeah. M. Night Shyamalan's Nepo baby.
yeah, Nepo baby daughter, baby.
I think. Daughter?
Just came out this year in 2024. And I will say for a directorial debut, I was kind of impressed.
Oh.
A bit. I mean, for a first movie that you're directing, I've seen many worse first movies.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. I would agree.
Should she get another shot? We'll talk about it.
We're gonna go over like a in-depth plot of the film as well. So if you haven't seen the movie and you want to watch the movie, there will be spoilers. But if you're a Patreon supporter, our watch party is recorded and up on the Patreon, so you can watch along with us if you want. But you didn't know about this movie, right? I think I was the one that recommended this, right?
Yeah, I had never heard of this movie. I didn't know it existed. There was no hype for it for me because I never saw any promo material.
I don't think there was hype for it for really anybody. Like I think I saw it randomly like on like HBO Max or something and was like, I'll watch that. I think that's literally how I found this movie. I think it's based on a book. I don't remember. I remember writing based on a book ?
We never looked into it, so
we didn't really. I mean,
could possibly.
Honest, like, after we watched it, we were like, okay, all right, well.
It didn't make me want to read the book that much.
No, it is based on a book. I did. You know what? I did do my research. I am good at
so
my job.
Prepared, unlike Donald Trump tonight. We're dating the podcast. We're dating this episode.
Shut the fuck up. We're recording this episode the night that the Kamala Harris Donald Trump debate just took place.
Yeah.
So it's on everybody's mind. But stop dating the podcast. This is evergreen content only. We're content creators, maybe. Okay, so what I don't even know where to begin with this movie because it's like I want to talk about the plot, but like what was the plot?
Okay. So this time I'm going to try to do this without any sort of like outline of the movie like laid out in front of me. I'm going based off my notes and my own memory.
Okay, I believe in you.
So I remember that it opened with a man running in a forest away from something, and a skittering little creature, and he gets got and dragged into a hole. That was like the cold open of the movie. So you're like, oh, ooh, where is this? Yeah. I don't know yet.
He was kind of hot too.
Yeah. And then we cut to Dakota Fanning in a pet shop in Ireland. And they won't let us forget that it's Ireland because They say
They say it
Ireland.
every 5 seconds.
I wrote insufferably Irish. Not because it was
Like,
authentically Irish, but every other word they'd be like, we're going to like the Irish pub. We're going to there's a story about the Irish forest.
yeah, the Irish mainland or whatever.
Like,
Like,
yeah.
what did they?
Okay, so yeah, one second. Like she works at a pet shop. She vapes, which doesn't come back. I thought it would come back in the movie at some point. Doesn't matter.
There are a lot of things. When I was reading my notes, there's a lot of things that are mentioned as if they should be important later, and they never come up.
Because he makes a big deal
like,
about it. He's like,
things.
you shouldn't be smoking near the animals or something.
Yeah,
Never comes up again.
doesn't matter.
So we don't see his face. One thing that's happening is
Just
we don't see anyone's face but Dakota Fanning. She's like, I'm by contract, I'm not going to be sharing any screen time, any scenes with extras. You're only going to see my face.
Do you think that's what happened?
I don't know. That would be fun if it was.
That would be insane.
It was an artistic choice that didn't seem to really matter.
I wonder if it might have been like M. Night Shyamalan or something, because you know he loves to stick his stuff.
That would
into
be
his
funny.
movies. Like it could have been him in like the background or something talking. I don't even know. I didn't
But
care enough to look.
We kind of pretty quickly get the catalyst for like what's going to set the movie off, which is the pet shop is like, there's a zoo over on the other part of Ireland that wants this like sun conure. It's like a not really a remarkable bird, but it's like a little parrot.
Just a regular ass bird that you could buy at like any pet
store. At a pet shop. It's a pet shop.
So it was weird that she was taking it to a zoo.
So she's tasked with taking this parrot in an old-timey bird cage across the Isle of Ireland to a zoo.
A cage way too small for that bird, by the way.
Yeah, way too small. I mean, it's supposed to be a transportation cage, but he was also in the cage in the pet shop. Whatever. Don't put your parrots in small cages. It's not good for them.
No, it's fine. I honestly don't have parrots.
Just don't get a parrot. It's fine.
Period.
They're too smart for you.
They're also they're a lot of work.
They are
not worth it.
Most people don't know what they're doing. She doesn't know what she's doing.
No.
She so she sets off on her grand adventure. Well, they go to the pub first, but that doesn't matter at all.
Right. Oh no, she does. This is when
this is another red herring thing where she puts on. Usually, I'm all for these types of scenes. She puts on a normal wig, not like a fun bob or anything. She puts on a normal,
like a
dark, natural-looking wig to go to a pub.
Yeah.
To flirt with a stranger.
Hairstyle she normally has in a dark color.
As if it transforms her into a different woman. And I'm like, Diva, you could just dye her. Like it looks normal.
And also,
she's not doing drag.
After she does that, she gets back into the car and she like talks to the bird. So it's implied that she like left the bird in her car for that entire time.
The bird was just sitting in her car while she was at the pub. I don't know. It was such a weird. Once again, it's a scene where like this is gonna go somewhere. No.
So like knowing the premise, I knew that they were going to have to go into the forest and like do performances of some sort. Like that was what I knew about the movie. I was like, oh, this is gonna matter because she puts on a wig, she's theatrical, whatever. Literally never comes up again. Not even thematically. No. There's not even like a callback to it in any way.
She
never even mentions it again.
No, she doesn't even talk about it.
I used to do theater.
It doesn't come full circle.
Like
it's just a strange inclusion, but this is what I wrote in Insufferably Irish because she talks to the guy at the pub, I think, about what she's doing and how she has to take the bird, and he says it'll be great to see the Irish countryside,
right?
And I thought that's what really set it off my brain, where I was like, that's a weird thing to say.
Are listening from Ireland, please tell us, when you're going to somewhere in Ireland, do you say like, oh, I'm gonna go to the Irish pub, I'm gonna go to the Irish, like, is that
do you say I'm going to see the Irish countryside as like a person who like lives in Ireland?
Yeah, I feel like that's a very American thing to say, but also it's unclear if her character's supposed to be American or if she's supposed
to be American, but nobody points it out like it's interesting or different.
No.
At all.
It's she
like goes off to drive through the Irish countryside.
Yeah.
On the Irish roads. through the Irish
And
Spring
yeah,
to get to the Irish Zoo.
right. And
Uh,
she ends up in the Irish forest.
she ends up in the Irish forest. Um, and she ends up driving up and past a sign that says she's in the thick of the forest now. It says point of no return.
Mhm.
And this is where I said
Right.
they should have been playing Point of No Return by Expose, because I thought it would have heightened the cinematography.
I mean, if they made this into a reality TV show, they would have.
Yeah. I
Except it
think it
wouldn't
would
have
have
been
been
that. It would have been
fun.
like a royalty-free version of like,
Yeah.
you're entering the point of no return.
I mean, that's essentially the song.
Well, anyway, so she goes into the woods and then like she looks back and her car's gone. And like this is one of the first things that you like looking back on the movie, you're like, okay, so she's entered a
Well,
magical
her
forest
car
where like
broke
things.
down. Her car
Oh
wouldn't
yeah, her
start.
car broke down. I
So
forgot.
she thinks because there's like point of no return, like that's somebody being like no trespassing. So it's like somebody lives there.
Yeah, or
That's her
something.
purpose of like going and wandering off in the forest, is she thinks she can find somebody that could like help her with her car.
Right. And instead she turns around and her car's gone. And
Mm-hmm.
like this sets up that she's in some sort of like trapped in some sort of
It's like
like fantasy
something magical is happening in this
forest.
forest.
Yeah, which in a way she is, but it's the only time where like uh things seem to change around her. Like that doesn't ever happen
Yeah.
again. Like once she's in the forest, it's like the directions kind of stay the same. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of landmarks that she can go and visit. So it's really confusing when you look back on it. It's like, why did her car disappear? Like because nothing like that ever happens again. Like
No.
there's no changing of geography.
No.
And then does she instantly meet the old woman? Is that what
She like
happens
immediately
first?
runs into the old woman,
Yeah,
who
there's no
immediately takes
downtime.
her to the coop, which is like this
Right.
cinder block, not cinder block, it's like concrete rectangular
Like is it
building with
yeah.
a floor to ceiling window along one side.
It looks like
It's
a
a
shitty
mirror.
like amphitheater. Oh, it's behind us right now in the
Yeah, it's
video.
she
But
takes them
if you're watching the
to
video, if you're
here.
not listening, but if you're, it looks like a shitty. If you're listening, it looks like a shitty like amphitheater you would see in like a shitty park, but
Hmm.
like with a giant pane of glass on it for some
From the
reason.
inside, they're on the inside. The night is falling. That's the important thing. And she ushers her into this concrete little room, um, and there's just like a giant mirror along one wall.
Yeah,
And she meets the
and
other
what's
two.
funny about this is that as a sort of uh concept, this is interesting, like from a storytelling movie perspective, because they know something's watching them but they can't see what's watching them. But
Yeah.
when we later find out why this building is here, it's never explained why there's a mirror there and they can't just see out. Like that's never addressed.
Yeah, it's not it's
It's
kind of
almost like
strange.
counterintuitive because when you get to it and you find out why this building was built, it almost makes more sense for them to be able to see out for
Yeah.
sure.
So what she's told is she's along here with three other people. The old woman who seems to have been here a long time. There's a young man who's been here for about 8 months, he says, and there's a young woman who came here with her boyfriend some time ago. I forgot when, but like her boyfriend or husband disappeared like not long ago. It was like a couple nights ago or something.
Yeah, and he was the guy that we saw get got in the
Yeah,
intro of the movie.
and
So she thinks he's still out there like alive
that's
at this
when
point in
the
time.
old woman explains the Watchers. They
Yeah.
come to watch them at night from sundown to sun up. They come and watch them, and they're just supposed to kind of put on a show for whatever beings are on the other side of this, one way mirror that they can't see out of. Because, like, the lights are, it's like when the lights are on inside and you can't see out, but other people can see in, is kind of the vibe.
Yeah. And so this is sort of the premise is that they're in this like little box. It's actually fairly big for four people. It's kind of like
Hmm.
a cement room though,
Yeah,
so not a great
like
place to
this.
live, but Yeah, and they're in there, and every night they have to give a performance
Hmm.
for these creatures, and
Well,
like
at
in
the
a way their
beginning, they
life depends
say
on that.
that they give a performance. Like he
Yeah,
does this like acting thing, and the girl does
and the girl does a
dancing.
dance. And that's the last time we ever see them perform. I
Yeah,
truly going into this knowing that was the concept because they talked about that in the trailer and I saw
they
that.
make it seem important at first.
I thought this was going to be some sort of like really like artsy sort of like existential thing about like the world of like theater and art and
Hmm.
how taxing it is and how
I really thought this
toxic
was
it
going to be
is.
more metaphorical than it ended up being.
I mean, I think it is, but they just didn't play with any of the fun concepts. Like that's such a
No.
good idea that they just completely fell short on actually ever delivering any like weird fun performances. It's like all you have to do is go to any sort of like alternative theater troupe performance and see some weird shit that they could have like taken inspiration from.
I literally wrote
But
that in my notes. I was like, oh, are they going to start doing like alternative theater essentially? Is that what this is
yeah,
going
they
to
didn't
be?
do anything like.
No.
If they had listen, if shout out to Taylor Javell, if they had done a Taylor Javell style countdown stream where they were just doing like a countdown for like 4 hours, I would have lived. I think that would have been
I thought this
great.
was
Like
going to be
that's
something where they have to keep kind of innovating what they're doing to keep the watchers happy, or else they're going to get bored of the performances they're putting on, and so they have to
yeah.
increasingly do weirder and more outlandish like performances. But no,
No,
that's it.
instead she sat on the couch and she watched an entire season of reality TV over and over and over again
Yeah, they have like this
for
this fake
months.
in-universe reality TV dating show, and it's like the
Mhm.
only thing they have to watch on their TV in the coop. And I think, but
Yeah.
it was kind of funny to see
And
that.
I do think in a way that's like that's part of like the commentary on it's like we live in this world where it's like a lot of content is people like even you watching listening or watching to this podcast you're listening to people reacting to another form of content. I feel like that's kind of what they were going for with the her sitting on the couch watching reality TV, but it's like
Hmm.
they could have taken those concepts so much farther and made them actually like and really dived into like the sort of existential nature of that, but they didn't.
Yeah, well, that's
They
where I
just
get to like
didn't.
one of my biggest problems with this movie is that they come up with like an interesting premise and metaphor and symbolism,
Yeah,
but then they're like, wasn't that a cool idea? And then they just
it's
continue
so
on.
half baked. It's like
It
there's
doesn't
so
go
many
anywhere.
things. Yeah, where they set something up that seemed like it was going to be interesting and then it just kind of fell flat. So
Yeah.
by day 3, this is when they tell her the rules, which was
Yeah,
wild.
they didn't
They
tell her
waited
there
until
are
day
very
3.
strict rules that need to be in
Yeah,
place, and they don't tell her till 3 days in. So she could have been breaking these super important rules without even
literally.
realizing it. Not that it seems to
So
matter anyways, by the way.
rule number 1 is never turn your back to the mirror.
Yeah.
That's rule number 1, which they didn't tell her until the 3rd day. And by the way, throughout the entire film, multiple characters turn their back to the mirror for extended periods of time. She
Yeah.
does it a lot. The old lady does it constantly. They all do it. They're constantly turning their back to the mirror. Does this ever matter? Literally, no.
No.
Like literally,
No.
it's never
It's never
explained why that's a
punished.
rule. It is never, they never say why that's a rule. Like
Mm-mm.
I still don't know. Why did they even say that? Like, it
Nope.
sounds like a creepy thing to say. Like,
Hmm.
but then for that to actually be scary, there has to be like tension and there has to be consequences to that rule being broken. The rule's broken. It's broken in like the next scene. And it
Literally.
doesn't matter.
By the way,
Um,
the name of the reality TV dating show, I wrote it down. It's called Layer of Love.
oh,
Just so you know.
okay.
I thought it was important enough to write down. And so I did.
And then
You're
what were
welcome.
the other rules? Do you remember the other rules?
The other rules were don't go near the burrows,
Yeah, don't go near the burrows, like the big
and you're
holes in the
not
ground where
supposed
they
to
live.
look at them. You're not supposed to look directly at any of them, any of the
Right.
watchers,
Because if you look directly at them, you could go insane, which
is
is
what they
said
claim.
allegedly.
Um,
Um,
I wrote that a bird in a cage. What a metaphor. Because they kept
Also, what about the bird? What if the bird looks at them? What if the bird turns its back?
the bird. Like all they do is just keep showing you the bird in the cage. Like, huh? A bird?
Yeah, it's
in a
literally just like a
cage,
visual. Right. But
trapped.
there's a lot of
Think
bird
about
themed
it.
stuff. The place is called the Coop. There's always the only animals we ever see in the forest are just birds flying around.
Yeah, they
So
live
like
off
the
of eating
bird,
birds.
they fucking pound you over the head with this bird in the cage
Yeah.
metaphor like the entire movie, even though it's probably the most like overused trope in any type of literature ever. It's like Maya Angelou like did it and then we
Yeah.
can move on. Like we don't have to do it anymore. Like nobody has topped Maya Angelou's bird cage scenario. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ishana really said, I know why the caged bird does alternative theater.
But does she though?
I
Like that's the
don't
thing.
I think she
Okay,
read the
listen.
title of the Maya Angelou book and went, that's
I
interesting. I'm gonna
had
run
a
with that.
degree in theater, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I
you
have
do.
done devised theater. I have been in weird artistic performances that like this type of theater that they would have been
Yeah.
doing in this. I'm also we're both content creators, so like we know what it's like to do sit here and do fucking improv for fucking 4 or 5 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours a night when we're streaming. So it's
Yeah.
like I did not get the sense from anyone working on this movie that they have actually ever done any of that type of performance or know anything about it because
Mm-mm.
it like I didn't see any links to like I wanted them to be doing like fucking shitty like zip zap zopping and shit like I was
Honestly.
expecting them to really be doing like devised theater and like improv games and shit, but they were not at all.
Yeah. I
Anyway, so they
remember,
break all the rules and it doesn't
yeah, they
matter.
break all the rules. It doesn't matter. And like we start getting glimpses of like how like they like live in this forest during the day. Because like
Yeah, they go
they
out,
show
they
like him
trap,
trapping birds to
they
eat.
eat the birds. How do they cook the
Um,
birds?
they make fires with their wet
Okay.
sticks.
And
Very
they
wet
gather
forest.
plants.
Yeah.
There's is there water to drink? There
It's
yeah, there's
it's
water to drink.
she the one girl seems to have like a lot of knowledge about plants, right? And so
Yeah,
does Dakota Fanning's character. What's her name? I forget. Um I didn't write, it wasn't important enough for me to write down. Um
literally don't know.
it shows her like there's like intentional like close-up shots of her like picking certain plants. And
Yeah,
I'm like, this is going to be important. She's going to like, oh, this plant
never.
looks like another plant. This is the dangerous one, so I'm going to swap it out at some point. No, doesn't matter. Once again,
No,
something's intentionally
literally
shown to you,
nobody
nothing
even gets like
happens.
injured or something and then they have to use a plant to like it's like not even
No,
like basic reasons to explain this to us. Like
no.
there's no it's like complete lack of understanding of like basic storytelling structure in a movie script.
Yeah.
There's
Th-
so many like things that don't go anywhere.
This is also where we really started having the discussion about
Turning the
how
movie off.
well that and how weird it is that it's like, okay, you're the Nepo baby of your very famous father who's very known for a very
Hmm.
specific type of filmmaking. And so this is your directorial debut and you're just going to do exactly what he does?
Yeah, it's a weird choice. I mean, if M. Night Shyamalan was my father and I wanted to break into the film
Yeah, I'd be
industry,
doing rom-coms,
literally, I would do anything other than like suspenseful,
twist
like,
movies.
yeah, like there's really no reason for me to touch that because like my father's
You're
really
just going to be
famous for
compared to
that.
your dad.
Because by the way, by this point in the movie, I think I had already figured out what the twist was.
Oh yeah,
I'm
we were
like
both already
99%
predicting
sure.
it like
Yeah, we figured
immediately.
it out like really early. So, and it doesn't, I wasn't even like, oh, it's M. Night Shyamalan, so there's going to be a twist. It's like there was a very obvious twist that they were pointing to from the beginning. They were
Yeah.
just pointing at it like so aggressively, and there was nothing else going on. So it's like all you're going to see is look at the twist. Like, oh, there's the twist right there, sitting in front of me while we talk about plants and shit that's never going to matter again.
So like this is where
Damn, this
she
movie made me angry.
randomly decides she's gonna go down into one of the holes where the
Right.
watchers
She wants to go in
live.
the hole.
And so
Yeah.
she
And
gets what's his face to lower her down into it.
this is the moment where I really started to realize a lot of the concepts were so similar to the TV show From, and you've never seen the show, but
No.
this is literally a plot from that show when they find like underground caverns and they go into it, which to see where the monsters that come out at night, like the monsters that come out at night, they can't get near. They like go live underground. Like this is literally from the show From. Like, and it's not an original concept, but just the imagery and everything. I was like, this is so similar because in the show From, when they go into underground caverns, there's like all kinds of like knickknacks and items and stuff. Except in the show From, all of the items actually matter and they link back to other storylines. In this, it's just like she finds a bike and she wants to take it home.
Supposedly, like, it shows that there's like been lots of people here before and they've all perished, and the Watchers take their items and put them in these burrows, and she decides to grab a bike and get it hauled out.
Right.
And there's like a little like, oh, the Watcher's coming for you, but then it tries to touch her and it touches the light. He goes, tss.
Yeah. And then they go back and this is when the Watchers get really upset, right? This is the night where
well, because she also brought back a video camera, like a camcorder, and
she tells everyone she just found these things.
She just found these things. And then the Watchers don't come to watch them that night. And so they also set up a camera. They like wired it from the camcorder to their old timey TV so they can watch outside of their like door to see what the Watchers look like. And the Watchers
don't show up.
They just don't show up.
But John shows up.
So John's like the other lady's boyfriend that we saw get holed at the beginning of the movie. He shows up naked. Unfortunately, this is a PG-13 movie, so nothing interesting gets shown. No violence, no nudity, nothing.
Yeah. But there's a lot of feet shots in this.
If you're into that, there's some feet content for you.
At least.
But yeah, he's like begging what's her face, Kiara.
Sure.
Kiara, to like let him in, and they do the typical thing where she's like, "Oh my god, my husband," and they're like, "Girl, this is crazy. Obviously, we don't think it's him. Ask him something that only he would know." And she asks I thought was a very weird question. She asks him, "What book am I reading?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, huh? And he can't answer. It's like, you would think it would be like, what did you get me for my birthday last year or something?
Yeah, like a really personal question.
It's like a really basic question, and he can't answer it, of course. And so,
right, which like if one of my partners asked me what book they're reading, I'd be like, oh,
the same thing. I'd be like, fucking no. This is like a really like, random really question to ask.
So this is the first time we see that like the monsters have some sort of shape-shifting ability. Like we saw inklings of it earlier in like little moments here and there, but this is the first time we see that it's like, oh, they can completely materialize or shapeshift into a person that they know, or in some way like play tricks on them because they're all seeing him. So it's not like she's just hallucinating this or something. So, what happens then? She doesn't let him in, right?
No, she doesn't let him in, and I think.
And this is when the monsters show up and start freaking out, right?
Well, they take out the camera, and I think that's where they start like skittering all over the place, and they start beating on the glass.
Yeah, and then this is when Madeleine, the old lady, she said, "We've broken too many rules."
Yeah, that's where she's like, "We've broken too many rules."
So it's like the rules, I guess, do matter or something.
I guess so, but they like crack the mirror, which is like scary. Ooh, scary.
What's the threshold for how many rules you can break? Is it like
I don't know?
Is it like they have to like?
They don't ever address like other people broke rules in the past, and this is what happened. Like that's not really.
No. It never comes up. You think that all of this information that Madeleine knows was going to lead back to some older stories that were more interesting or whatever?
It's also really unclear as to why they never explain this either. As to why they love to watch them in the box through the glass, but
Because if you're outside, they just
If you're
kill
outside,
you.
they just kill you. So it's very unclear as to why they love to watch you in the box, but the moment
Right.
you're there's nothing between you. Like they try to sometimes I don't it's just very unclear because like they don't really try to break in.
I mean, to me, it's like the whole thing's obviously a metaphor for like
Yeah.
the sort of parasocial relationship between like fans and like TV show people or social media influencers or whatever, and how they watch you in their little fucking box. But usually your fans don't like try to kill you.
Yeah, but like plot wise, thinking about this as like monsters and people and what their motivations are and what they want.
Yeah, there's no
Because
in-universe explanation.
because the thing
But
is, I wouldn't be
try
I
to
wouldn't be
think of it from
belaboring
a
this point about trying to make it make sense, but they try to make things make sense
right, yeah.
realistically.
I'm trying to think of like from a metaphorical standpoint, why are these things happening? Because there's not a really good in-universe
No.
explanation for almost anything in the movie. Truly, it's a combination of heavy-handed metaphors, like smashed into a like concept about like an enchanted forest, basically.
You know what's really funny?
What?
I realize I'm looking at my notes. I stopped taking notes for probably at least 30 minutes starting at
I
this
mean, nothing
point.
happened.
'Cause,
It's a
like,
really slow movie.
What happens after this is they go to sleep because they calm down and they wake up and they go out and do their thing
Mhm.
again and they like throw the shit back into like the bike and stuff because she wanted to get the bike so that because like okay, so one of the big problems that they have is they have this boundary around the coop, this circular boundary that they've mapped out at this point where that's as far as you can go in half a day and still make it
Right.
back to the coop before sundown. Um,
Yeah.
they don't apparently seasons don't matter here because some days
Yeah.
should be longer than
I mean,
others,
I
but
don't know.
whatever.
What about Ireland? Does Ireland, does
Ireland's
days change
way
dramatically?
up north with like the
So they
like
would change
England.
really dramatically
Yeah, it would
in
be like,
Ireland.
where I am and where like the summers have like like the winters will have like really really short days and then like the
Yeah.
summer it's like really long days. So
Mhm.
definitely gets affected. But anyways, that's not factored into the movie.
No,
Um
not at all.
so that's the boundary. That's as far as you can make it. They don't have any other way to get further because if you try to go further, you're not going to make it out of the forest before night falls and they kill you. So she
Yeah.
wanted the bike because you could make a lot more distance on a bike through a forest. I don't know,
I
but
guess.
it
It
was her
looks like a
idea that you can
busted
cover
bike. I
more
was like, there's no
ground.
way there's air in those tires or anything.
No,
Like that bike is not gonna fucking help you.
but so anyways, like
For
that's
sure.
that's their major problem is that they just can't make it far enough to get out. Um,
Maybe just run faster. Like I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
Anyway, it's not
Anyways, they throw the
important.
bike down the hole
Like
again,
most
thinking
things in the
that that'll
movie,
make
it's not
the
important.
watchers happy.
Yeah.
But
They
this
find a
is
bike, they get rid of the bike. It doesn't actually matter.
but this is where what's his face, the guy starts just randomly loses his mind. He just
Yes.
goes crazy. Why? I guess some pressure because the old woman's like, you're not catching enough birds, and that's enough to just make him.
Yeah, he just doesn't like Madeleine.
Yeah.
He doesn't trust Madeleine either, which
No.
at this point in the movie, I don't trust Madeleine either. So I feel that, but there's not a ton of like reasoning given for why he just like snaps suddenly.
No.
And this is when he ties her up and he leaves her out to die, but then main character, who I can't remember her name, stays back, unties her. By the time they get back to the coop, the other two that are in there have locked the door and they won't let them in. So night falls and Madeleine and the main character are both trapped outside.
Yeah, they're trapped outside. Oh no, that's one of the rules.
Yeah. And this is the first time we get to see the monsters, right?
Yeah, this is the first time. So Madeline goes and
Get to
hides
is
them
a
in
strong.
under like a rotting tree
Yeah.
out in front of the glass. So that the apparently once again, I thought this was gonna matter. Doesn't. She says the smell of the rotting wood is enough to cover their scent. And I was like, oh,
Right, which you
so
think
when
they
they're
would use
finally
that.
escaping the forest, that's gonna be something they're gonna have to use to get away. No. Useless information just to explain what they're doing, I guess.
It just saves them for that one moment, but they never consider using it again for any reason whatsoever.
But we see
Even
that
though there's definitely
Watchers,
times later when they could have used it.
Yeah. The Watchers are tall, gangly creatures
Yeah.
Um,
They're honestly
they're
not that
very
scary.
generic looking, to be
To be
honest.
honest, like when you finally see them, you're kind of like, okay.
Yeah, they're really not that scary
It kind
looking.
of reminds me of that. Did you ever watch the movie Bird Box?
Yeah,
And the whole premise is they can't look at the monster, but like
yeah,
allegedly in the production, there was going to be a scene where we finally see the monster, but they cut it because the monster looked so dumb.
yeah.
That's how I felt about
Yeah,
this. Like they
because
should
like
have
there's
cut
all
these
this
CGI
build up. They're like,
monsters.
if you see these, you're gonna go insane or whatever. No, they're
It
creepy,
reminds
but
me of
eh.
the M. Night Shyamalan movie, The Village, where they have
Yeah,
a similar premise where it's like a town and at night these monsters come and they have to do certain things to appease the monsters. But in that movie, M. Night Shyamalan actually understood like the suspense and the sort of horror that comes with having a monster that the characters can't look at and therefore the audience can't look at it either, and that builds a lot of
yeah,
tension. It's really scary. But in this movie, we look at the monsters and they're just kind of like little dudes.
yeah.
They're like little Slender Man, kind of. They're not that interesting from a monster design perspective,
But like the
honestly.
Watchers, I remember they're not happy still. They think
No.
the two in there think that, oh, are gonna do our little thingy and they're gonna be happy and they're gonna be fine again. They're not.
Well,
Um,
no, because he
mm,
literally says they're not in here. They're out there with you guys, and then the Watchers go and like search for them. Remember?
yeah. And I have
And then
a
they go and oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have a memory blank as to how they go from the outside back to the inside.
They go and they run to the door after the Watchers run and search for them, and they bang on it, and they let them in.
Right,
That's it.
that's right.
Nothing really
For some
happens.
reason, all the Watchers leave.
Yeah, they all go and they search for the two that
Um,
are not in there.
and so that gives them enough time to go back to the coop. So like the idea of like they have to like the idea of like, oh, they have to they're trapped out there, it just seemed unnecessary. They just wanted to show the monsters
Yeah, it was. There was
because
really no.
they could have just
They
had
could
them
have.
go inside.
Yeah, there was nothing really else to. I mean, it's not. Anyway.
So anyways, they let them back inside, and but then the Watchers come back and they're pissed because they suddenly decide they want to kill them all, and
Yeah.
they start banging on the door and
But
banging on
at
the
this point,
glass,
they had moved the table from the center of the room to the door to block it.
which they have
And
never done
they've
before
never moved the table before
ever.
in all the years they've been out here. And it turns out under the table and under the rug under the table, there's a trap door. They've never
Mhm.
found this. In literally, it's like, do you even clean? Like, do you sweep? Like, how did you never look under that rug before? If I was trapped in a fucking room
You would
in the
know
middle of the
every
forest,
inch of that
you
room,
literally, I would be like searching for fucking literally anything, a clue as
anything.
to where this
Oh,
building came from and
bef-
what we're doing.
before we get down there, way at the beginning of the movie, or at the beginning of like when she gets into the forest, they do tell her something about they're like to explain away like why they have electricity and this room. They say the professor as like a mythical being
Yeah,
um
they never discussed what the fuck that means.
created it and that there's some sort of power or something down underground.
And like, if I were this new girl coming in, I would be like, how did this building get here? What is this about? And it's like,
Who is the
that's the whole point of
professor? Tell me
having,
about him.
yeah, that's the whole point of having a character who's new to the situation. That's why we
Yeah,
don't just start
they're a
in the
vehicle
room with the
for
characters that are already there.
exposition.
But they don't do any of that. She has
No.
no curiosity about the world. She just accepts everything and she's like, that's fine.
This
Let's
is
go.
where it really started bugging me that she was like such a like a nicotine addict, that she was vaping in the pet store earlier, and she's been here for so long and she's never had a
She has
single
never mentioned
nicotine
again.
withdrawal at all.
Yeah, not at all. She doesn't give a fuck. And then
Like
they go down in the bunker, right? And
yeah, they
then
crawl down the ladder under the hatch and the Watchers cannot open a hatch.
yeah,
They're
for some reason.
incapable.
But then when they get down there, they find a ton of food that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Um,
Suddenly
but
they're
more
like, "Oh my
importantly,
god, we can survive down here forever." Not that they're going to.
literally doesn't matter. It never comes up again. More importantly, they find a computer
Yeah, it's like an
and
underground research base kind of
yeah,
deal.
and it's full of vlogs by the
Yeah.
professor. And his vlogs fucking suck.
His vlogs are terrible.
Like I say this truly, like I don't think I'm first off, I've never done like true, well, that's not true. I have done vlog type stuff, but like it's like I feel like you could find any like Gen Z TikToker You could have got them on your team at this movie, and you could have taught this man how to make an interesting vlog, at least just for the entertainment of us as the viewer watching the fucking movie. Because God, were his vlogs boring. It was just literally a vehicle for exposition.
Yeah,
Since we haven't
because
had
this
any
is where the
real
movie starts to
exposition.
explain itself as like the reality of what's happening to make it seem real and grounded
Yeah.
as if you need that really, but whatever. We don't need mystery, we need exposition.
And she watches, I think, 3 vlogs, and
She
they just
watches a
happen to be
couple of the
the
first one where
exact.
he's like, I've come here to build my research facility to learn more about the Watchers because I'm a folklorist or something.
Mhm.
And so he pinpointed this forest where the Watchers live.
And the Watchers at this point are explained to us to be fairies
Like
or
fae folk of some
changelings.
sort.
Yeah. So obviously it's an Irish story. They're in Ireland. Obviously we're gonna do fairies. I didn't even make that connection until we got into the fairy stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um.
So she watches the first couple of like when he was first got there, and then she skips
Mhm.
all the way to the end to find out what happened to him, like what happened at the end.
Yeah. And so the basic gist of the story
Hmm.
is it starts with him building it. And this is an interesting moment, and I do feel like this is very meaningful in a way.
Yeah.
He says that the way this building was built was he would have essentially like townsfolk, like people from around the area, which, like, how the fuck did he get them there? But anyway, so he would have, I guess, people from around the area somehow come in, and they would build stuff for like a day, and then he would lock himself in his bunker and let them die outside.
Yeah.
Which, how did he get out into a find a town and then bring people in? Like,
Because it's an
that's never
elaborate
explained.
facility. Like you would have to
Yeah.
dig and burrow. So that requires such ridiculous equipment. Like the idea that like they're trying to explain this rationally, but it does not make sense.
No, and also it's like the idea of like you're working on a construction site, and like it's a barely it's like a half-built project, but nobody from the day before is there, and now you're going to finish this
And now you're
project.
going
Like,
out and being
that's
like, oh, I guess I
crazy.
pick up where the last people left off. Don't know where Steve is, but
Also, this is the middle of nowhere. So it's like, how is
yeah.
he finding so many people to do this manual labor? And also, it's like, obviously, I feel like this is sort of like just a big metaphor for like the treatment of uh different, like, lower class people,
Yeah.
because that is a big concept of the
Yeah, this rich
story.
professor that's here for his own, his own knowledge to be gained is
Yeah.
sacrificing tons of blue collar workers so that he can learn
And
about the
also,
Watchers.
the thing he's studying is essentially like an indigenous creature. Like, it's not,
Yeah.
they're very humanoid creatures that are just not like, they're like, they're old fairy, like ancient fairies that were like sent, like trapped here by ancient humans, essentially, is sort of the lore of the why they're here, which they
Hmm.
kind of do a lot of exposition about that. So he built the bunker. Part 2 of the vlogs, he captures one of them and
Hmm.
seems to be romancing it. Like, he seems to be like fucking it, maybe. um it's not really explained explicitly, but like that's what it sounds like. And then part 3, he says he's never going to be able to go back because of everything he's seen here. So he goes upstairs. Oh, but he says, but there's a boat if you go to this part of the forest. I know that boat was never for me now. And then he goes upstairs and uh
Yeah, he says
he
he's gonna go
shoots the
upstairs to
fairy.
shoot the the fairy that he's been fucking and then kill himself.
Right.
And then he leaves the camera running so that it
How do you feel about fucking a
happens.
fairy?
I've done it before. It's fine. No,
Same.
have had no complaints. Um,
I love a shapeshifter. Would
oh, same.
100% fuck one of these
These
fairies.
shapeshifters are kind of shitty though. They're not great because they're not great at doing it for some reason.
That's
It
fine.
takes them so long to be able to start mimicking a person.
I mean, as long as their butthole doesn't like shapeshift into something else while I'm inside of them, like, that's all that
Yeah.
matters, right?
Yeah, sure.
That's would be pretty horrifying.
So they learn about
That's
the
the scene we
boat.
should have gotten. I would have loved that scene.
They
Could you
learn
imagine?
about which specific marker you have to go past to get to the boat and get out of the
Yeah.
forest.
Hmm.
Um, Which is weird because it seemingly means actually there's no magic holding you in the forest. You just have to get out of
Yeah.
it.
No,
So
it's just a physical place that you can come
did
and
she
go
get
as you please.
teleported when she went past the boundary and
That's
her car
what I'm
disappeared?
saying.
It
It's
doesn't make
never
any sense because
explained.
they never get teleported back in when they try to leave.
Like, it's also funny because there's a lot of tropes about like fairy realms and that kind of stuff, but they don't use any of them. She doesn't
No,
like walk through a magic
no.
fairy door or like any of the like typical like fairy related tropes. She just
They
kind of walks
barely
through
do any
the
trickery. Like the trickery that they do supposedly is like you see throughout the movie, um, like ghost images of people flitting through the forest, like memories of your past flitting
right.
around in the tree line, and they're supposed to tempt you to go out there to them. But we know they're not the Watchers because the Watchers have to be underground. They can't be out in the day. So it's just the forest's magic.
Yeah, or something.
Because there's also a
And then also,
subplot about
yeah,
her getting in a
her
car wreck
backstory.
with her twin sister and her mom.
Right.
They try to make it
And
important. It is
yeah, I was gonna say
not
there's not really much to say about
important.
it. It'll do them at one point we get a flashback where she was being a little shit as a child and her mom uh tried to roll up the window because she was being a little shit, and then she got her hands caught in the window, and then when her mom turned around to help her, the car crashed and her mom got flung out of the car and died.
And her sister got
I
maimed.
Yeah, her sister got maimed. And she carries guilt from this, but it never really matters.
No, it comes up one more time to try to like solidify like a theme, a point, and it just
Sure.
doesn't. It will get there.
Yeah, it's so like okay, whatever.
So they're gonna escape the forest. They're gonna trek out at
Uh
dawn. They know which marker to go for, and they're gonna make it to the boat, and they're gonna leave the forest. Great, hooray, hallelujah. So they do that. They go to the exit. They leave the forest. They get chased out because the sun's going down. They're running out of time to get out of the forest in time. But they don't really even seem to move at like a quickened pace. They
no,
don't
they
seem to be
even
in a
stop at one
rush.
point to like talk about more
Oh,
fairy lore.
yeah, we find this like dais on the ground in stone depicting like fairy faces, and they go in,
Yeah.
the lady stops to go into this whole story about how the fairies and the humans used to live together in harmony until the humans decided y'all are freaks and we don't like you anymore and we're gonna lock you underground somehow. And so they were trapped underground, and that made them really, really angry. And they had to like claw their way out over thousands of years or something,
Right.
only to still be trapped in this forest, I guess. It doesn't explain why they can't leave the forest.
No, it's never explained why they can't leave the forest. It's also not explained how they trapped them or any of that stuff. It doesn't matter, I guess.
Yeah.
But they
But
lost
they,
their
they
wings in the
take the
process.
time
And
to explain that entire story
yeah,
when they
I mean,
should
there
be
was tons of
escaping.
opportunity to do some solid world building that actually like would be impactful and memorable and meaningful,
They
but
could
they
have
just
found
kind
that
of
when they were just
didn't.
doing their daily chores and been like, what is this? But no, they decided to keep it for this moment. Anyways, it
Yeah.
is important because when they finally make it out of the tree line and they see the boat, guess what? They spent so long talking about that stupid fucking story and not talking and moving at the same time that the Watchers catch up to them and they fucking destroy what's his face? The dude
Yeah,
character.
the dude gets tricked by another fairy that is shapeshifting into John, the woman's husband. Even though
Hmm.
they all have the same amount of information, they all know that these monsters are shapeshifters. In
And
fact,
they've
this is the
used this
second
trick
time
already with the
one of them has
same
done this exact
guy.
same shapeshifting into John move before. And the first time nobody fell for it, not even his wife. But this time the random dude falls for it, and then he gets his like throat slit or something. I don't know.
Yeah, so the three of them, we don't
It's like
really get to
not.
see any violence. It's PG-13.
Yeah, so
The other three though get in the dinky little boat, and the fairies
they
can't
roll
follow
away.
them, and so
Yeah.
hooray! Roll
Hooray! And then
credits, except
they
not
yeah, I was gonna
because
say that
we
they get to a
realize that there's
bridge.
still like what 20 more minutes left in the movie.
Well, they get to a bridge and they get on a bus and they sit on the bus and they've clearly been changed and traumatized by this experience.
Except they
And like
don't
that's when I
look
was
dirty
like,
or anything. They look
no, they
completely
don't.
normal.
But see, this is when I was like, oh, and now there's somebody's listening to a radio and she says, oh, could you turn that up? And then they play a radio song, and then I was like, and now the movie's gonna end.
Yeah, that's
They're
what we
still
thought.
like 20, 30 minutes left of this movie.
Yeah, it was kind of disappointing. It's like you could just wrap it up there. You
Yeah, and I would have
could.
been fine with it. And in fact, I would actually argue the movie might have been better
Yeah.
because there was a lot of weird stuff about Madeline where it's like it doesn't really they never really kind of confirmed yet what was going on with her, why was she there for so long, etc.
Hmm.
Um so it could have been like a cool like maybe Madeline was evil all along,
Yeah.
like sort of
What's
ambiguous
going on
ending,
with
but
her? But no,
no, we need to take another 30 minutes to do a lot of really
they drag
heavy-handed.
this out.
I mean, it is like literally like I it like playwriting, like script writing 101 type of like I go to the professor's office and I look through his notes and I read about
I
him. And I
pretend
was
to
like,
be his niece, so I get into his
yeah, I'm like,
office and I
what
can
is this
read
all
all of his
about? It's
research and
there's
I
so
get
many other
more
ways they could have
things.
uncovered this information.
And
It reminds me of,
then,
in video games when you play a horror game and they do exposition by like somebody left notes everywhere for you to read.
yeah.
It's literally that in this movie.
But she finds out, oh my gosh, wait a second. Madeline looks just like his wife, but his wife
Right.
died.
His dad,
Oh
yeah.
no, I need to go talk to. I said her.
Cersei. No, that's my dog. Wait, what's the lady's name?
Kiara.
Kiara.
I need to go find
Yeah.
Kiara because, oh my
Because she learns
gosh.
that halflings exist. This is when she learns about
Yeah,
Sookie Stackhouse.
yeah. Half
So
fairies.
yeah, half fairies exist, and they uh I essentially happen when a fairy and a human fuck and make a baby.
This
When
is
did that happen? Never
this is kind of
explained.
funny to me is that they make it out of this traumatic situation. They don't even exchange phone numbers. She has to like look her
No.
up to figure out where she lives and like what's her phone number.
They never thought like maybe we should keep in contact
Yeah,
because
maybe we should
we
keep
might
in
need to
contact
talk to
because
each other
nobody's gonna
later.
understand what this was. We need to like have a little support
Nobody's
group.
gonna understand
No,
why we've been
they
missing for
just
months.
they just like split ways. They never like give each other like a they don't add each other on Facebook. Um
No.
so she
Could you
she looks up
imagine?
her address and like thankfully I don't know, maybe Ireland's just not that big even though she got lost getting there. But anyways,
I don't think Ireland is that big,
but she
actually.
like goes to her house and it's nighttime. Um and she's like there's something weird about Madeline and they start talking about it and
Yeah, she explains everything that she believes that Madeline was actually one of the fairies all along,
mhm,
etc.
mhm, mhm.
And
And
then guess who shows up?
Kiara.
Kiara.
So
I
that's where
was
she
gonna say Cersei
realizes
again.
that actually um
The person she's been talking to
it,
was actually Madeline all
Madeline,
along,
who was actually a
shapeshifting
fairy
into
pretending to be
Kiara.
Madeline, is now pretending to be Kiara. Um,
Mhm.
and now Kiara's home, and now they have like a showdown, like a little scuffle.
Yeah, they have like a little fight, and then
Because that's when the
um,
fairy is like, or the halfling is like, oh, I want to become you, main character. Actually, I actually want to
right.
become you now and take over your life. And
Mhm.
I forgot what happens, but
So at that point, this is when the main character is like, no, you don't want to do this. And then we get a series of flashbacks during this moment where basically the main
yeah,
character explains to her like, you're different, you're not like the other fairies, you don't belong with them, but you never felt like you fit in there because you're a
right.
halfling. That's why you're able to walk in the light, that's why you're able to leave, because you're not like them. So basically, she as a fairy wants to get revenge for her people for being trapped in this forest.
When it's
But
such
the
just
main
like you could
character is
be
like,
amongst us, we're your kind, actually.
right. The main character is like, you're part human. That's why you have empathy. And there are moments when they flash back. It's like, there were moments when she actually did have empathy for them. She actually
Yeah.
did try to defend them from the fairies.
Well,
She
yeah,
did
because
try to
like
save their lives
there's no
multiple
other
times.
reason why she should protect humans that come into this forest and try to keep them alive. She feels a
Yes, and
kinship with people to it.
fairies seem to just kind of fucking eviscerate them every time.
Yeah, she does have a kinship with people, even if she didn't realize it
Yeah.
entirely. Um,
So for some reason, this revelation of the fact that she feels emotion for humans makes her
it
suddenly
connects with her
grow.
history of killing her mom.
Right, and then she grows wings.
Yeah, because all the fairies lost their wings when they were
Yeah.
underground. She sprouts her wings, and it's a triumphant moment
Yeah, she grows wings and then she flies away.
because
And
bird, cage, wings,
right.
freedom, fly. You know?
Yeah. 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 Um and then this was really the scene where I was like, if they had cut all of the bad CGI of the monsters earlier,
Yeah.
they could have really put their full CGI budget into
She
this
looked
scene.
like shit.
Yeah, because in the end, she just looked terrible, and like the idea of the like her triumphantly growing her wings and blossoming into like the fairy that she was meant to be. It's a great concept, but the visuals just didn't live up to. It wasn't very interesting or pretty or scary. It wasn't anything. Like it was kind of like, okay, great, she grew her wings. Moving on. Like it just.
I
It
just want to
didn't
share
really
how my notes
have any
end for
impact.
this movie. All the
What?
notes I took during the entire finale was Granny was a watcher. Okay, great. That was it. That was the end of my
Yeah.
notes.
Well, and then so she has there's another scene after this, like, it's like as if they need more scenes, more conclusion scenes. There's another scene where she talks with her sister,
She's
who
at
we
her
find out is
sister's
still
place.
alive,
Yeah.
and she tells her sister everything that happened to her. Her sister never once doubts her or even is like, "Hey, are you okay?" She's just kind of like, "Yeah, that sounds true." And then she talks about how she still sees Madeleine everywhere she goes, and she likes to be a little girl with red hair. And then zoom out of the window, we see Madeleine, the little girl with red hair, looking into the window, and then she turns around and looks directly into the camera, and then the credits roll.
Also, she kept the
And
fucking bird. She never delivered it to the zoo.
yeah, she stole the
what's up with
bird.
that? Those birds are not cheap either. Those birds are thousands of dollars.
No.
So she stole thousands of dollars. That was probably a felony. I don't know Irish law, but it was probably some sort of like felony or something equivalent to that. And yeah, it leaves you there for some reason.
Yeah. So um the the thing the thing about this movie is that I like doppelganger stories. I like shapeshifter stories.
Same.
I think they're really fascinating and interesting. I also, after I recently read the book Doppelganger by Naomi Klein, where she in depth talks about doppelganger stories and their meaning in society. And I do think that in a lot of ways, this movie touches almost like lightly on the topics of like the themes of a doppelganger story, but it gets a lot of them like really kind of mixed up and confused. Because a lot of times in a doppelganger
does enough
story,
with a doppelganger idea. Like they don't really
No.
do a lot with the actual like transformation and trickery that come along with like fae folk and shapeshifting.
Yeah, and it's like we never kind of reconcile with the fact that it's like the whole point of a doppelganger story is that it's like you have this sense of self, but then when you see somebody else mirroring your sense of self in a different way, like a doppelganger, it has this sort of existential effect on you. And I think even there's a strong correlation, and in the book Doppelganger it's a lot about this, where there's a correlation between the concept of a doppelganger and the concept of people having an online persona. It's like for those of us that do content and stuff like that, we have this like content creator doppelganger that we've created that isn't necessarily our personality.
There's a
but
different
it's who we
me
are
inside the
online.
screen.
Exactly, but it's like it's sort of like this sort of other version of ourselves, and especially when like Instagram content creators and shit, they do this like fucking heightened sort of perfect version of themselves that isn't very realistic, whereas like you and I, we're just fucking nasty sluts who just fucking sit here and
I mean, I literally become a different person to make content.
That's true, you do drag, which is, you know, but
For those who
it's-
listen
but
and
do you,
don't
though?
watch the podcast, I am a drag king, by the way. We've never addressed that. Not a single time.
But also, it's like you interact with that, you're the same bitchy person, so it's
Yeah, it
not
doesn't
like
really change.
yeah, it's not like you're doing like a character. This is just who you are. But also that goes back to the concept too, because people like us, we're like live streamers. We stream 5 days a week, 4 to 8 hours, and then we do other
Yeah.
kinds of content. Like we spend
We
so much
literally
time
are
doing
the people in
content.
the coop performing every night.
Literally. And that's why I think this movie fell short for me, because it's like, as somebody who this I felt like this movie was supposed to be about, I didn't relate to it. I was
No.
looking for more of the actual connection of like, what does being on social media all the time do to your psyche? How does that affect you mentally? And we didn't see any of those kinds of effects,
No.
if that was the sort of metaphor they were going for, which I thought that was kind of the
Metaphor they're going
overarching
for were
theme.
bird cage wing freedom.
But also what's funny is that, and I don't know if this really, I mean, maybe somebody could have read it more into this. A lot of times doppelganger stories can also link back to mental health and mental disabilities. So like some of them are kind of like a metaphor for autism or for different kinds of mental health problems. Um, in a, I didn't really feel that in this doppelganger type story. But I kept trying to make that connection. I kept thinking like maybe this is, but I think the stronger connection is that the fairies kind of represented more of like a sort of indigenous culture, but that is also weird because they're in Ireland. Like the setting is weird for this to be a story about like a group of like Western people oppressing an indigenous culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's the entire like invasion of like this region by. I mean, that's I'm not even informed enough to talk about it, but like,
Yeah, I was just saying I
because
don't
there
know enough
were
about
indigenous
Ireland to
people
know
that were
if this
taken
is
over
like
by the like the Anglo-Saxons or whatever that came in long time ago.
yeah.
But anyways,
It's just like, but I think there's a lot of like overarching themes of that, of like the professor sort of taking advantage of these fairy creatures and also taking advantage of the neighboring villagers, and sort of like the main characters kind of suffering the karmic like justice of what he did to these creatures and what
yeah,
previous humans did to these creatures. And I feel like that's sort of the heavier theme throughout the whole story.
yeah.
But like, I don't know. I just like, I feel like I kind of wanted more, because it's like, if we are going there, we never really reconcile with the fact that there
Doesn't
are
really
still
go
all these,
anywhere.
yeah, there still are all these fairies trapped in this forest, and they just want to kill everybody, which like that is also really terrible representation if that's what the metaphor is supposed to
But like
be.
they want to kill
Because
everybody, but they can never leave the force for some reason, and that's just
yeah, and it's never explained,
no,
and they never want to do anything about it. Like
no.
Madeline never is like, "Oh, I want to free my people." She's
They
just kind
never
of
like
like, "All
help
right,
the
well,
fairies. They don't banish them again. They're just there.
yeah." Because you would think like Madeline being, but Madeline doesn't seem to like them either. She kind of
Also,
like
you
is
would
like
think
happy
that
to be
like
out.
if they were going to be leaving, and it's like apparently it's so easy to get out of this forest if you just know which direction to go. You'd think they would just like put a sign up that's at that marker that they went to and be like, just run this way at dawn. Just go.
Yeah, because like, what if someone else gets trapped in
Somebody
there?
else is going to get trapped in there eventually. Somebody else is going to have to deliver a bird to the
Yeah,
Irish Zoo.
I never even thought about that. Like, there's 100% like if all of them got trapped in there, there's no
She
reason that
was
that wouldn't
driving on
continue
a
to
road and
happen.
got trapped in there.
Yeah, a road led directly into that forest. What the
anyways,
fuck?
anyways, they do
No, I'm
try.
actually like upset about this now. It's
They
like they
don't
didn't
try
do
to help
anything.
anyone else that comes in the
They didn't do
future.
anything to fucking try to prevent this from happening
Nope.
to other people.
They didn't go around the
Damn.
perimeter and just be like, never
The
enter
fairies
here,
in there.
never enter here, never
Yeah,
enter
evil
here.
fairies ahead.
No, they just sort of go, okay, well that was wild. Anyways, see you never.
Yeah. Um, I think if there's anything else I really wanted to touch on as far as like the concept of the story,
Hmm.
I just feel like it's such a so
I
many
think we
missed
covered it.
opportunities. Yeah, it's like because when I think about shapeshifter stories, I love the idea of like I love the ideas around a shapeshifter
Hmm.
story. I love the
Same.
ideas of a person who has no identity of their own, just kind of trying to like meld into these other identities. That's a really fun idea that they could have played with a
Like
lot more with
me.
Madeleine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the other thing. When we first started the movie and we had the wig scene, I
Yes,
remember saying to
yes.
you, this character should have been a drag performer.
Literally, we
Like,
thought she was gonna be like when we got into the Watchers part when it's like, oh, they're all performing. Like she's gonna bust out her wig and be like, guess
yeah,
what?
and she's gonna
I
do like
do
a lip sync
drag.
number. Like
No,
that's what I've wanted it to be. Like she's gonna do like a full drag
she
character
doesn't
or
do anything
something.
entertaining. She is not an entertainer.
No, and it's like that would have been a great parallel to the shape shifting theme
It also would
because
have
what
made that
is
scene
drag other
mean
than
anything. Okay.
literally, yeah. But also like drag is literally shape shifting and performance, and that's what this is
Exactly. It would
about. Like
thematically fit into the. It pisses me off. Now I'm remembering that pissed me off because, like, you could have done something with that.
there's so many missed
Could have done
opportunities.
something with
This is a
that.
film full of like good ideas with no follow through. Like
Yeah.
everything's so half baked. Everything is like it's almost a movie that I wanted to like if they had just spent more time on some of these concepts or had slightly more creative ideas, this could have been a really good movie.
Yeah.
I think that's why I have so much to
Unfortunately
say
for
about
me,
why I'm
it
so
falls into like kind of
frustrated
the
with it.
bland middle ground where it's like I'm never gonna watch this
Yeah.
movie again.
No, definitely not. Why would I? There's so many other better movies. Like
Yeah.
I would just watch The Village, which was a much better
Exactly.
execution of a similar concept of like the isolation of being in the woods, having monsters surrounding you. Or I would just watch From, which is a TV show that is this feels like this literally copied like multiple concepts from that show.
Yeah. Like when I said at the beginning, like this isn't. I wasn't blown away by this. It was better than I expected.
Yeah.
But it wasn't great. It
No.
it wasn't. It's
I
no
just
it's no Sixth Sense. It's no
no.
like you
But
you
I
went
mean,
out to create a movie like your dad's, and it definitely feels like a movie your dad. If you told me this was an M. Night Shyamalan movie, I would have went, yeah, looks like it,
yeah,
feels like
same.
it.
Hmm.
I
Yeah, I
mean,
guess that's it.
I guess it's better than the latest M. Night Shyamalan movies I've watched. So it's like one of his more
Ugh,
midline titles, but yeah.
can't even get into the knock on
Oh,
the cabin door.
oh God, we're not. Nope. Um. Anyways, how many stolen birds out of 10 would you give this movie? Would you recommend it?
Out of 10, I think if you if you mm,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with 5 because it wasn't the worst movie I've seen. I got through it perfectly fine. I never I don't think even if I was watching it alone for my own amusement, I don't think I would have like turned it off halfway through. But I do think I would have decided to do something else. Like I would have like played a
Yeah.
video game or something while it was on in the background. It's not a very engaging or enthralling film whatsoever. It's quite boring for long portions. About an hour and 40 minutes. It feels like it's 3 to 4 hours long. It's so
Yeah.
slow. It drags and nothing happens.
I'm similar.
So
I'd give
5 out of
it
10.
I'd give it somewhere between 5 to 6 if I was feeling really because like I give it a few
I feel like you're
points.
really generous with these ratings.
I would give it a few points because it looked good for the most part. The CGI, no,
Yeah.
but the cinematography, the set design, the lighting, it's all looks good.
Yeah, like I actually think the set was probably the
Mm-hmm.
best part of it. I think that concept was really what carried the movie. It's
Yeah.
probably why the movie got produced, like that sort of idea
Well, it's like just
visually.
look at this image behind us. It's like this imagery of these people on the other side of this glass in this concrete box in this warm orangey light. It looks intriguing. It
Yeah,
looks
it's
nice.
true. That's why I decided to watch it because that was in the trailer, and I was like, oh, that looks
Yeah.
interesting.
So that's why I
But
give it like a 5, maybe a 6 if I'm stretching it. Um,
yeah,
but I wouldn't recommend it
okay.
really. Like it's just
No, I
not that
mean it's
fun.
fine.
It's not
I think
silly.
if
It's
you're
not campy.
a diehard M Night Shyamalan fan and you love his work, you might appreciate this.
You'll enjoy it
I'm
enough, I guess.
excited to see what she does in the future,
Yeah, like
but
I
I'm
said,
not like
for a debut, it's a solidly put together little
um,
movie.
I just I would never watch it again.
No, I'm never gonna watch it again, and I won't.
Yeah, that's all.
Great.
Like, great. If you guys want to watch these movies along with us, you can subscribe to the Patreon. All of the tiers, all the paid tiers get access to the watch parties when we watch them live. I believe the $10 tier allows you to watch the previous watch
You get
parties
our
as
commentary
well.
track that you can sync up on your own and watch it.
Exactly. Yeah. So obviously we can't post the whole movie in Patreon, so you'll just have our audio and video if you want to watch it with us.
You can pretend that you
So
can talk to us. It'll be fun.
yeah, and that goes for I think literally all of our videos. We didn't record like maybe the first one or two, so
Yeah, it took us a while
everything
to
else
come
should
up with
be
the
there.
idea. Um, but yeah, subscribe on Patreon. You get a little membership. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube.
Yeah, like and comment, review, rate
Yeah,
us, review
follow
us.
us.
Also, if you do subscribe to the Patreon, we are going to start doing a monthly poll where the
Mm-hmm.
Patreon members can decide additional movies that we'll be watching and whatnot each month.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's another
exciting.
benefit.
You can be
If you guys
involved.
want to
We
tell us
care
what to
about what
watch,
you think.
yeah, maybe.
You. Anyways, once again, I'm
And
Dorcas Horror, and you
I'm
are
Doll Thighs.
the Final Bros. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, great. We're done.